Perfect. And later on, after we finish our session today, we will put it on our YouTube channel and voila. Last thing, thank you for being with us today. Would be lovely to see your beautiful faces. So as many cameras are on, we are always happy to see you. And at the end of this session, when me and Kylie have finished our little interview, you, dear viewers, wherever you are today, you will have the possibility to ask questions to our expert today. So, okay, let's kick off. So, Kylie Dong, the founder and the CEO of Cottage Clothing, and your background, you studied at the Oxford University, majoring in biology. Let's start with that. So, Kylie, if you could introduce yourself with your own words, who are you and what is your journey and breaking barriers? What does it look like?
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. Hi, everybody. So my name's Kylie. Like Charlotte said, I went to the University of Oxford quite a few years now. I studied biology, which is completely unrelated to what I do now. So what I do now is I am a entrepreneur and I have a e-commerce company. So I basically, in that way, also partially freelance doing some other creative projects, but yeah, I would say that I probably have gone down a reasonably untraditional career path, especially because it's, I mean, not related to anything that I studied and also not like particularly common, I think.
Mhm.
But I have always just found kind of in working for myself, like working independently, something that is very rewarding for me. So yeah, that is kind of how I got into what I am doing now. But yeah, that's just a kind of an introduction, but I guess we can go
Yeah,
further into it.
super, super. Thank you so much for this introduction. And it really, I love this because here at Proactive, breaking barriers, self-employment is one of the key challenges and tools that we try to use as well. So it's wonderful and inspiring to see an example coming to real life. Coming to this brings to my next question. Um, how do you what are like the key challenges when you started and the most valuable lessons as you said, you started your own company, you didn't choose maybe the pattern that was expected from the society, and from what you studied you went from to become a self entrepreneur. What are the most valuable lessons and the key challenges that you have faced so far, the lessons learned, so to say?
I think for starting something like this, the greatest hurdle is always the very beginning, right? I think when you're doing something that isn't like that, well, at least I didn't have like too many like friends or role models or anyone doing it around me. So I guess it's like even the motivation or the inspiration to start it in the first place is probably the greatest barrier. For me, I think um I worked actually for a short time in consulting right after I graduated.
Mhm.
And the timing was probably a big thing for me because I had just started my job when COVID began. So I was working for this consulting company for a while, but then in the end, there just weren't really projects coming in. So I didn't really have much work to do and I had a lot of free time. Um, and I had spoken to some friends who were also kind of recent graduates and looking for alternative employment, like different kind of pathways they can do. And one of them had mentioned e-commerce to me before, and I think probably it was a mixture of having a lot of free time and also wanting to explore the option of working independently for myself, that led to me kind of having the idea of starting a company in the first place. And I think probably for most people, the that motivation of uh, kind of taking the risk of doing something for yourself will be the biggest hurdle. Because I think after that point, once I decided that it was worth having a go, the rest came pretty quickly. I think especially like nowadays, there are so many resources online that you can find for these things. So the platform I use is Shopify. And I just do like classic e-commerce, slightly similar to the drop shipping model, but less less directly from manufacturer to consumer, and like basically we have a slightly different process. But when I was doing my research for my company, I would just research keywords like e-commerce, like Shopify, like drop shipping, and there are just so many materials online that you can find that I think if you are someone who is keen to start something like this, like you're really not it's not hard to find resources and tutorials and things like that. I guess the second hurdle after all of this, like once you've done your research and you know that this is something you want to do, is to get the project off the ground. And for that, I think it's really just trial and error. I think it's like sometimes you have an idea that's good, or you get
Mm-hmm.
lucky, or you hit like a good market. Sometimes you don't, and that's fine. Like I think most people who are entrepreneurs or have their own business or work for themselves go through probably quite a few rounds of like slight failures or like practices before they have anything that is successful and starts to generate income or any kind of traction at all. Um so yeah, I think also you have to not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to restart.
Mm-hmm.
um and I know it's like kind of obviously if you forego the normal classic career route of having a job and having stability and security, then
Mm-hmm.
it feels like if you have a project that doesn't work out the first time round, um, I guess like there is a certain degree of fear of why not just go back to something that's more secure or
Mm-hmm.
something that's more predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think chances are like most other entrepreneurs I know, if you like are willing to just give it another go and try again, like it's not like it's going to take like 20 tries for something to work out. It just
Mm-hmm.
is like a matter of like maintaining your own determination to continue like on this path. But also there's nothing wrong with trying it and then deciding that it's not for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then at
Mm-hmm.
least you know that like you know that's still a lesson in itself. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Very much true. Failure is as important as success. Uh,
Yes.
Thank you, Kylie. This is super important. And your story is inspiring because you are a young entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur. And coming back to the uh, subject of today's webinar, especially gender equality, uh, what are the practices? How do you put them, the culture, and making sure of having gender equality uh, in your current company? What are the steps that you have taken to create like a more inclusive and diverse environment for your business? Uh, being yourself a young female entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I guess so. My company is very small. It's actually just me, one other girl who works for me, who does fulfillment
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm,
China, and then yeah, it's just basically us. So I don't really have like a team. So at the moment, I that's not really the direction that I think that my company is going. I quite
mm-hmm,
like the the kind of like control. And I think also with a company like this, it's once you finish the initial setup stage, it becomes quite like automated. Like it
mm-hmm,
kind of just runs itself and you don't
mm-hmm,
need like a lot of input. I think I mean of course there are things you can do to grow companies like this as well. That's just not the pathway that I've
mm-hmm,
taken.
mm-hmm,
I think that in terms of like like diversity in entrepreneurship
mm-hmm,
and being like a young woman in entrepreneurship, I think it's definitely still much more common to have men in like roles like this. um I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I don't know if this is like general, but I think there's definitely a slight difference in maybe like confidence or like boldness to kind of go out there and kind of like take a risk in this way. At least I found it with other friends who are doing entrepreneurship as well. These traits seem to come more easily, at least I think um for classic like guys or men or but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I guess there are so many like nowadays like resources for women and for like people from minority backgrounds who if they want to join communities which can
Mm-hmm.
help kind of people that are wanting to do entrepreneurship and things like this. Like I have attended a couple of these kind of like networking socializing events with other female or like POC people in business, people in entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
I think those resources are like useful and important. But probably the most important thing is just like the confidence and like
Mm-hmm.
ability to like just take a bit of a risk, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally, totally. That's uh, completely true, but not we don't always remember that. That's a great reminder to be bolder
Hmm.
and believe in yourself even more. Uh,
Yeah.
and do you think now that you studied in Oxford, do you think that the educational background influences your perspective on these issues like gender equality or entrepreneurship, or do you think that they belong to everyone?
I mean, I think that these ideas definitely belong to everyone. I think like no matter what your education background,
Mm-hmm.
um, probably like the biggest influence to on most people is their like peers or their friends or even like I don't know like family members. I think obviously my education background um like there's a lot of privilege to that as well, like being able to um like communicate and meet a lot of like pretty like successful people in my field. I guess the thing is that I didn't end up doing a job that was related to my field at all. So even though I met a lot of like pretty amazing professors in the biology field, it wasn't really relevant to my work in the end. And I think to be honest, like uh no matter what background you're from, I think something like starting your own business is like pretty accessible for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like quite a difference between like the size and structure of businesses. So for example, like um it's probably more common for people who like have like some connections and people that do business already to start like like bigger companies, like um more like startup kind of style, like companies that have like teams or like engineer things.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of like small business, like what I do, which is really just like a team of two and then pretty simple operations.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is really like quite accessible for everyone, and you don't really need to have like a degree in business or like you know really like any particular education background to make that happen. I
Mm-hmm.
think like it's just like being able to like motivate yourself, and then I mean I think for something like this, like Google is a great research
Mm-hmm.
like platform which is accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
um and also like online tutorials. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know there are like paid courses and things like that as well for
Mm-hmm.
things like e-commerce entrepreneurship. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're actually necessary because there's so many free materials, especially on like on YouTube, even on Shopify. Like these platforms themselves have tutorials and like online courses as well if you're interested. So
Mm-hmm.
I think like for something like entrepreneurship, like um you finding relevant online
Mm-hmm.
free resources or courses are probably a lot more relevant than whatever like degree or university or education background that you have already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And actually, this my next question for you would have been, what would be your advice to some of our viewers? For example, if they are at home and they're thinking, okay, I have studied this, but I would really want to become an entrepreneur, and what would be the first steps? But you mentioned the online platforms, Google. Would you recommend this? What would be your first and second and third step for starting to build the career that you want, maybe even if it's not the classical one, so to say?
Yeah, for sure. I think that if you're thinking of switching career, like switching careers or switching, um, what would you call it? Like something different from what you studied or you
Yeah,
currently do right
yeah,
now.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I think, well, first of all, it's definitely finding something that you're interested in, because I don't think often people like, if you want to create a successful business, you have to be kind of interested in it yourself, whatever premise it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that is something like a niche, which is for me, it was this particular kind of aesthetic called cottagecore for a while, which was quite big during the pandemic, and I just
Mm-hmm.
thought it was interesting, and I got really into it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But I have friends who have companies doing plastic recycling, or um like selling science equipment for schools. There's all sorts of random, there's all sorts of things you can do. Like, it just depends on your own interest, because if you're interested in something, even if it's just a hobby, or even if it's just a, you know, something that you think is completely trivial in your life right now,
Mm-hmm.
you can definitely expand it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're interested in it already, you probably already know more than the average person who's not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's finding something that is kind of personalized for you, that could be a beginning of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have that,
Mm-hmm.
then you can do, the second step, which is just researching how your industry works, like whether
Mm-hmm.
that be e-commerce or not, like, or broader. And that can look like, I mean, so many different things. I think social media is also a really valuable source of information, of learning,
Mm-hmm.
of kind of even like learning about the market, like market research, knowing what consumers want, knowing what is popular, what people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that you're interested in, likely you have already been recommended these things on your social media.
Mm-hmm.
So it will come quite naturally, because you will know what people are looking at, because those people are yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and um, and yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned like a bit like if you're interested already and then you have the niche idea. Can you give us a bit of the background? What was your own process when you founded your own entrepreneur? Like, where did the idea come from, and was it like a personal interest that then blossomed to something else?
Yeah, well, I think I was probably like a lot of people, I was pretty chronically online during the pandemic. I spent a lot of time on social
Yes,
media.
yes.
And I just thought that this particular aesthetic, this particular style popped out, like it jumped out at me, and I just thought it was interesting. So I went down kind of a rabbit hole of following a lot of influencers that were kind of leading this trend, and finding other kind of emerging businesses that were marketing things that were part of this trend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I was more interested in the trend before I had the idea of making it like a business idea.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was quite a natural way to go about things, because I both was interested in this trend, and I was interested in working for myself and experimenting with the idea of e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think, I mean, I also know people who just want to get into entrepreneurship and they don't have any ideas yet, in which case you can do it the other way around as well. You can go out there and look for something that inspires you. Or there are also kind of, I think there are what are they called? Like grants or various
Mm-hmm.
like opportunities you can apply for,
Mm-hmm.
where these companies will link you up with other individuals who
Mm,
want to be co-founders, and you can meet other people who might have ideas themselves, and you can just help them with the execution part of the business.
mm-hmm.
um but uh, yeah, for me, it was more that I found a trend that I was interested in online. I was already spending a lot of time online, so I understood how like the marketing worked and what was getting popular and what wasn't getting popular. And then I thought, why not experiment like with e-commerce and a
Mm.
trend I like? So yeah.
Wonderful. And then it blossomed to this
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
may you have many, many successful years to come. Um, and what would you say uh, on those days when you don't you don't believe in yourself and like you're like, oh, uh, this is not gonna work. What makes you go forward?
Uh, that's a good question. I think that I think that we, everyone, the best way to think about these things is probably just taking things day by day
Hmm.
or step by step. I think that if you're stuck in a rut, if you feel uninspired, it's just important to remember that nothing is permanent. Emotions aren't permanent. Like lack of inspiration isn't permanent. If you don't feel inspired one day, it doesn't mean that you won't wake up the next morning and suddenly feel inspired. So just having faith in yourself that whatever you feel is lacking will come, I
Hmm.
think is very important, and not beating yourself up in that moment because it doesn't help. Like if you are feeling down or you're feeling uninspired or you're not feeling like, like getting your work done, beating yourself up about it isn't going to help it. It's not going to solve the problem. So I think just being gentle with yourself, taking time off if you need, taking time away if you need, and just um giving yourself a fresh start the next day, or the next, I don't know, if it's morning you can try again in the afternoon, something
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that.
Beautifully said. And Kylie, my last question for you today is, what do you want in the future to increase inclusivity and gender equality in the business world? What do you wish would happen? What do you see in the future?
Hmm. I think that uh like for me at least, having role models that I can relate to or feel like attainable for me was really important. And I think going forward, like uh the more organizations and the more kind of work like this, or like networks that are especially for women in business, for women in entrepreneurship, like hopefully like this encourages more like people to start more like, sorry, like less uh to do career paths that are maybe less standard. And
Hmm.
then as you have people that can be more role models, I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. Because at least for me, most of what I've done has been like, a recommendation by a friend or seeing someone else doing something and then thinking like, wow, I can do that too, um because yeah, it just makes things feel more attainable.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
Seeing someone else doing it before and networking where we need each other, right? And
Yeah.
that's a really beautifully put, like to have role models. I thank you for
Mhm.
that. And do you feel like do you see a change uh in the recent years? Do you feel that we are moving in that direction?
Yeah, I definitely do feel there's positive change, of course. Like I think change is probably never instantaneous, but I do
Hmm.
think that generally society is moving forward in a good direction, and that makes me really hopeful and really excited. And I just hope, like, you know, more people get to do what they want and do what they dream of doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. The world is a beautiful place because we're all different. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, Kylie. I think we have been talking for a while now, and I would like to ask if anyone in the audience, if our viewers, if any one of you guys have a question for Kylie. And we do have our first question. Okay, I'm going to read it to you from the chat. Okay, Thea. Oh, there's many questions. Sorry. Okay. Hugh. Hi, Kylie. Thank you for your input and for sharing your experiences with us. What role do you believe mentorship and networking play in monitoring gender equality for women in business? You actually touched on this already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it plays a really big role. I think that, like, this kind of links to my role model idea, and also like networking, like having friends, having mentors,
Mm-hmm.
having people who are doing a similar thing who can help you. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is a like probably the most valuable resource in promoting gender equality, because particularly seeing other people like you who may have had similar struggles is so valuable, and also having a mentor or having people that understand what you've been through or challenges that you have, like, um yeah, I think it's really important. And I think it's also great that more and more there are resources like this that are out there that are like easy to come by as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your answer. If you're okay, I'll move to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was so inspiring to listen to you, Kylie. My question would be, what strategies or tips do you have for female entrepreneurs to maintain the healthy work-life balance, especially for young mothers?
Yeah,
That
that's a good question.
it's a really good question. Uh,
Yeah, I think when I first started my company, I was pretty engrossed in it for a long time, and I don't think I had a good work-life balance right from the start. I think I also had a lot of free time, and it was during COVID, so it's not like
yeah.
there was a lot of other stuff to do. But I think working for yourself, it's pretty important to set boundaries that you would if you had like a normal job, because
Mhm,
I think a lot of people say you go from working 9 to 5 to working 24 hours or 0 hours. Like, it becomes very extreme. But I
mhm,
think if you can try to set boundaries for yourself to still aim to do 9 to 5, to give yourself your weekends off. It is hard because when everything is kind of stored in your own brain and you have your own schedule and you know what's going on, to stick to something like that. But I think
mhm,
even like the concept of trying, like the concept of trying to set boundaries, trying to have your weekends free, trying to maintain like some sort of, if not 9 to 5, then some flexible hours that are relevant to you, I
mhm,
think is important. But it's definitely like a challenge for a lot of people who are in this industry, I think.
mhm. But that's a really good tip because stay in the simple things, and the simple things actually make a big
Mm-hmm.
difference. That's a good point. Um,
Yeah.
Thank you, Kylie, for that. Oop, then, oh, this is okay. Um, oop, sorry.
No worries.
So my next question for you is, thank you, Kylie. Can you recommend and share us some mentorship programs that focus on BIPOC women, trans or non-binary people that want to start a small business? Also, if you want, Kylie, you can put your email or because
Yeah, why don't I do that? So I think there are definitely some resources that I can look into for people. I think to be honest, I didn't take part in any programs like this directly,
mm-hmm,
so I can't like recommend any that I have experience with. I
mm-hmm,
know that even like googling like exactly this, like mentorship programs for BIPOC women, like it, and trans non-binary people. There are things that come up.
Mm-hmm.
I also find Facebook groups, like social media, there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of networking kind of groups on there that will also promote things like less formal mentorship programs.
Mm-hmm.
But I will leave my email so that if anyone wants to actually contact me about these things after, they can, and I can send you some resources.
Perfect. Super. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much. Um, and then we have a last question. In your experience, how long did it take for your entrepreneurial venture to reach a point of stability? And um, what are the key things that played in reaching that kind of stability? And then what advice would you have for those who might be in their journey early stage, uh, also in teams or managing expectation and staying resilient during the initial years? Oh,
Mm, yes.
yes.
So, I would say probably the first 6 months of
Mm-hmm,
my company was pretty trial and error.
mm-hmm,
It was probably about 6 months that I started seeing the fastest growth
mm-hmm,
in the company. So that was a pretty big milestone. And then after that 6 months, like the next year was pretty stable. Like pretty like I kind of got the hang of things. Growth was pretty stable. And like that was quite a milestone and pretty like comforting to see.
mm-hmm,
I would say give for those starting their own company, like give it definitely like 6 months to be like a trial period. Like you'll have a lot of kind of tweaks to make, and a lot of things to learn, and then probably within a year you'll start to see if whether this company is actually viable, and if it's starting to show promise after that point, that's a good sign, that's a good milestone.
mm-hmm,
um if not at that point, then I think it's a good time to evaluate like whether you want to like pivot or change your idea in some way. But I would give it like at least like something like 6 months to a year.
mm-hmm,
In uh early stages of the journey. Yeah, I think that like even like up to a year is still an early stage in the journey. Managing your expectations and realizing that the timelines can be quite long, like, and often like even after a year, if you're not seeing the results or growth that you want, just continuing to like you might end up just changing one thing that makes a massive difference. So I think until you see the results that you want, just keep changing things,
mm-hmm,
like just keep moving things around, keep trial and error. Like for me that would be like different products, different marketing,
mm-hmm.
uh but it might be different for like other companies. I
Mm.
don't know.
Thank you. So keep going, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, keep going. I guess like try as many different things that you as
Mm-hmm,
you can. If at some point you really feel like these things aren't working, at least give it like 6 months to a year to like make those decisions.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Give it time. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
super. And actually, hope it's. Do you still have time for one question?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I observed that unfortunately, in some cases, female leaders may inadvertently contribute to gatekeeping behaviors that hinder the progress of other women in the workplace. So, how do you suggest addressing or navigating these kind of situations? And then to foster, yeah, a more inclusive and supportive environment for all female professionals within the leadership structure.
I think this is a really hard one
Mm,
because if you do feel like you have someone, if whether that's in like a higher role than you or someone that you want to ask for help who is kind of gatekeeping and not being very helpful, um that's obviously like very frustrating. I
Mm,
don't think that there is like a lot you can do in situations like with these people. I think like the advice I would have is just to like cut your losses early and move on and ask someone else if someone isn't being helpful.
mm-hmm,
I know like culturally like I know that this does happen and it is frustrating, but hopefully like this is just like a culture change problem. Like I think sometimes people might feel like for some reason like defensive or territorial or feel like if there's more competition out there then it's harder for them. I don't think that is the case, especially for something that is as diverse and as like large as entrepreneurship. There's plenty of room for everyone. There are so many
mm,
niches to fill. I think that you'll always be able to find someone who is helpful. And if you are met with someone who isn't being helpful, then just don't don't spend too much time on them. Don't get too frustrated. Don't like waste your own valuable headspace on something like that.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate your thoughts on this. Thank you, Kylie. Was written in the chat. Uh, Thank you so much, Kylie, for this wonderful session and your answers and your input. Thank you for taking part. Um, if there's no more questions, I'd like to close the session and I wish you all a beautiful rest of the day. Thank you again, Kylie, and I wish you a wonderful day and hope to see
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, yeah, go on.
I will. So I'll just send my email in the chat.
Yes, please. Just put
I think, yeah, kind of,
so
yeah. So if anyone wants to contact me with follow up questions or anything like that, feel free to just email me. But yeah.
yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And if you have any questions or anything, uh, Kylie's email is in the chat. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, any more questions? Any more comments? Kylie? No,
Uh, no, I'm good.
all right. Thank you so much for this session and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks. See you in the next
Thank
webinar.
you. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.